Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5 Tips and Tricks for Careers in Athletics. I am your host, Dr. Maury Mosovitz, with my all-time favorite, best, most wonderful, amazing co-host, Jen Albanese. Welcome, Jen.
Hello, Maury. Welcome to the podcast, everybody.
We
How you
have
doing?
Christina Harrell today, an amazing woman who owns a business that people might not always think about in the world of sports, like
so interesting.
branding and design for spaces. And it's a really cool job for people that don't know about it. If you love sports and also love design, like it's a neat thing to do.
Yeah, it's a cool marrying of passions. It's very cool. So
Yes.
yeah, that'll be a good conversation with her. Yeah,
it makes me think about design and building. And you ended up building a house, which I do it all the time, but you got that one experience of building something.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's like a personal experience because we built our house that we live in currently. And in the end, I will say, I love my house. I love what it ended up being. I don't know if I loved the process, and I don't want to say it was it was because we didn't like picking things out. That was my favorite part.
That's always fun. That's the funnest part.
Going to pick out your flooring or your lighting or what colors you're going to paint, or if you're going to do accents here or whatever, what your cupboards are going to look like. I just think the company that we worked with wasn't the best. And that's such a thing when you go into projects like this, when we talk about Christina's company, if you have a company that is a good partner with you, it makes for a better experience. And unfortunately, the company that we used it wasn't a great experience. And
so if you're looking to build a home, don't ask Jen for a recommendation.
I will not give you any good recommendations. But it was an interesting whole thing that we had to go through with it.
It's one of the things I like about my job, and I didn't build it. We redid many rooms in our home, which was fun. So we did all that, but didn't have to use a big contractor because we used a general contractor that just fixed some of our rooms. But in my work every day, Teresa Crook, I'll shout out to her. One of my favorite parts
she's the sweetest.
I know, she comes in with her giant bag like Mary Poppins and starts putting samples on my desk and is like, this is my idea for this. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And we'll talk about what matches with one thing and with another. And then you have people like Christina come in and overlay, this is what's going to be the big branding element. And it's fun. It's one of those things about my job I really like, because you get to be creative and think about how other people are going to see it. And then I always have to think about, well, how do you actually use it? Which actually Teresa's really good about too. She'll always be like, your players are 400 pounds and this chair fits someone that's 75. Tall. Yeah. That's high not going to work. And I'll be like, okay. And then she'll give me the 5 chairs that work for us. And we talk about which one looks the best for what we're doing. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. See, that part of the being able to make the decisions, that's what I liked about the house process too, was we did the layout and what room was where. And so that kind of stuff where you feel like you have the control of that and you're able to, like you said, be creative with it. That makes it really fun and unique. I think that's the best part, I think, of owning your own home. Like you said, you redid different rooms, but being able to put your style to it.
It's a reflection of you.
Yeah, it's a reflection of what I like and what we like as a family and what we like to do. And, when we talk about when we design the office, when you look behind, we like golf. So a lot of golf theme and so that's the cool stuff I think of the design and build process.
Well, the funny thing, and I'm sure Christina will talk about as we come up, but it's the same thing when you work in athletics, is how do you get this cool space to reflect you in a neat way that communicates to people, and what she does and her company is all about that. So it's going to be awesome to hear from her, and we'll get to hear all of her tips and tricks after these messages.
Are you a loyal 5 Tips and Tricks podcast listener? If not, now is the time to start. Get all your info and fun content on the podcast by following us on all our social channels at @AthCareerPod. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast is a part of Athletic Career Consulting. Make sure to reach out to us. The one-stop shop for everything is our website, www.athcareer.com. Remember, follow and like us on @AthCareerPod, rate and review us, and get all your info at www.athcareer.com. All right, welcome back, everybody. Maury, would you like to introduce our guest today?
I've been looking forward to this one for a while. Our guest today is a 1998 Furman University graduate and a former golf student athlete who has truly turned her passion for sport into a thriving career, though not quite the way she originally imagined. She was a professional golfer on the, I'm going to say this wrong, Symetra Tour for 5 years before transitioning into a successful business owner. She now leads an award-winning design build firm based in Greenville, South Carolina, specializing in experiential branding for college athletic programs and top-level businesses. The firm, Jack Porter, which has been in operation over 10 years, has worked with some of the nation's top Division I programs, including Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, and Georgia. They focus on creating immersive branding experiences that bring organizations' unique stories to life within their facilities. Her journey from the fairways of professional golf to the world of business and branding is a testimony to the power of her adaptability, strategic thinking, and love of storytelling. She has built a company that is shaping the way college athletics is experienced, using design to unlock engaging fandom, deepening emotional connections, and driving growth for her clients. As a leader, she is committed to mentoring others and advocates for female entrepreneurship while continuing to drive her firm's success. Please join me in welcoming Christina Harrell. Welcome.
Thanks, Maury.
Hi,
I
Christina.
messed up on that a little bit. I tried really hard. You got a lot going on, so I got to make sure I get it all in.
You're big time. That's what it is. It's your big time. So
I appreciate you guys having me.
Well,
yeah, this is great.
Again, you were on my list as soon as I knew we were doing this, and I just enjoy working with you and what your company has done. And I think a lot of people who might not know that in athletics, there's this amazing career field that you've kind of built and created, I thought would be great to share with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people see the work that we do, like they see the results, but they have no idea how it came to be, right? And they don't know, they don't know that there's a company out there that had to put that together. And Maury, you know firsthand how difficult it is.
Yes.
And definitely when people look at it, I think it's a lot of things. And Jennifer, you're in marketing, a lot of things, like the end result looks really simple and clear, but like what it took to get to that simple and clear was usually a journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like they take for granted how this beautiful space that's so dynamic and that like becomes a reality is kind of amazing.
Yes. And to some extent that is by design in
Right.
certain circumstances, right? You just want people to experience the space, be impacted, but not necessarily really be aware.
Right.
So sometimes it's by design, depending on what it is.
Well, with that, let's get started on your first tip.
Okay. Well, like I mentioned, I really plan to focus on my tips in the branding and facility world, since that's really where I spend my time. But the first one is I figured we really can't have this conversation unless we talk about what brand is. So I think people get really confused. This may or may not be what's in Webster's definition, but for me, a brand is the sum total of what a person thinks about your brand. So you could think of it as, what makes your brand, what makes your identity unique? What's the first thing that comes to mind when a consumer thinks about you? And it can apply, I would say, also, with everything going on in NIL and RevGen, and it can apply to a person and an organization, right? There's a lot of emphasis now on developing your personal brand, but hopefully that's in alignment, with an organization's brand or sort of under that umbrella. So I think the other thing, just to kind of have that as the base layer, that with everything going on in athletics, I think that the brand, of a university's athletic program was always important, but now it's become gold.
Right.
That, you've just, there's maybe a feeling that things are sort of pulling at it and trying to water it down. And so it's just so much more important that message be really refined and consistent, and genuine, right? Like people know if it's not genuine. So
Yeah, I feel like so much of the process is like an exploration of like just honing in on what is making up that organization or that piece so that your company can take it and project it to everybody else. And
yes.
like a lot of times I kind of found that sometimes we as operators don't even recognize what our own brand might be in some ways, in like a funny way.
Yeah.
Like we kind of have set things like, this is our colors, this is our logos, this is all our other things. But I've seen through the process and working with you guys before, and we've had these conversations about like drawing out things that connect with people and kind of enhance what is someone's brand.
Yes. I mean, I think a lot of times, both people and organizations just sort of lose sight. Well, I think one thing too, like a company like Jack Porter can come in. I remember actually like working with Coach Izzo years ago, and he was so just in his, in Michigan State basketball that he sort of, Jack Porter coming in and enabled this outside perspective of, I was like, well, coach, like, this is how I perceive you. This is how we perceive you. And so, he just didn't see it that way. So it's like this outside perspective of like, well, based on our research, based on what we see, these are the things. And so it's just helpful. It's also helpful for people to challenge like preconceived notions, of what it is, about a brand. And the other thing is like brands, I would say they're not static, they're kind of constantly shifting and moving. And, especially like head coaches can really, shift the culture of a program or, shift the vision of a program. And so, those are interesting things to try to manage.
Yeah.
So building on that, my second tip.
Number two.
Look at that transition. Beautiful.
Like a
beautiful.
So sometimes I think people think they can opt out of this, but what I would say is you don't get to opt out. Every space communicates something, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral, but you don't get to stay on the sidelines of this. So, a lot of times when I meet with people, most of the people who come and want to talk to us, it's because there's like a misalignment between their space and the trajectory of their program, right? It's like, it's either in that moment, they're like, well, this just doesn't really reflect who we are anymore, or it doesn't reflect where we're hoping to go. But, I just also like to remind people that, no matter what your budget is, you just need to be thoughtful and purposeful about what you're communicating, which again, to kind of go back to my previous point of, sometimes it's really helpful to have that outside perspective. Like Maury, I'm sure you experience, and probably you too, Jen, like you'll walk past things every day. Now Maury, you're in facilities, right? So you walk past things and probably notice them, but there's just nothing like having a stranger come walk through a space and say, have you looked at that? I mean, it can be the silliest things, right? Like, people's trash and recycling. I'm like, this is the worst. This is the worst trash, or signage. Yeah. I mean, signage, I joke with people. I'm like, nobody cares about signage unless it's not working.
Right.
Right.
So, the moral of the story, I think, is that your space is communicating something about you. And so, whether you have $5 or $500,000, make it be the best reflection of where you're trying to take that program that you can. I have one of my good friends who I played golf with. She's a coach at a smaller school, and she's like, Christina, I painted these lockers, or she's painting it herself.
Yeah, right.
She's a head coach. And then, or, she's like, can you check this price for me on this local sign shop, where I got these lettering or these, and so she just, again, she doesn't have a lot of money. Her program doesn't have a lot of money, but she's just trying to do, what she can.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my number 2 is you don't get to opt out.
I
No.
love the have a stranger walk through somewhere, because I think like you said, like we see it every day. I walk through the same hallways every day, the same facility every day. I don't notice if something doesn't make sense because I'm just like, well, this is what it is. Like, this is where I work. But somebody walking through and going, well, why are you using this, or why you have this set up this way? Like, it's such a different perspective, and you never think about that because you're just so used to it. So that's really cool, because that can really help elevate. Like you said, even if you don't have a lot of money, you move some things around, you paint, you do different lettering, like that can really elevate, an area that maybe once wasn't. So that's kind of cool to think about. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember a few years ago, we were doing a hospitality space and there were like these ledges that had dead plants, or like, they were like dried plants.
I can always see your face on that one.
I know.
I have no poker face. I'm like, would you like me just to remove those today?
Can I just throw those out? Can we just throw those in the trash? We have a trash right over here. You can throw them out.
Yeah.
It means that school does not have a horticulture program, clearly.
Or anyone to water their plants.
Actually, I think is like an ag school.
Oh, no. Shh, don't say who it is.
Don't say who it is.
I'm not. But, I think the other thing too is remembering who the audience is.
Yeah.
And so this is maybe 2B, remembering who the audience is, like in these, in all your training spaces and things that are geared for recruits, right? Your audience is like 16, 17 years old.
Right.
And then, if you flip over to the hospitality side, your fans, they can be all over the place, right? And a lot of places have, like different, levels of hospitality that have different demographics. Yeah. So, you got to speak to your audience and be relevant to your audience.
No. I always
dead plants won't speak to any
audience. No, there's no one speaking.
Dead plants are out.
I know.
I always think it's interesting when like you have someone walk through and they pick up on like a little detail that only like, that's my favorite thing. That's like only like a few of us knew about when we put it in, like, oh, let's do this angle. And they'll be like, your angles are all the same in this hallway. And I'll be like, yes, they are. That is something that we decided to do. But it's certain people, it means something to, and it has a effect on them, whether they realize it or not. And like, that's the more I have been involved with this, the more I realize like, you're right. If you have a blank white space and you walk into it, that says just as much as something that's really well designed and clear, but maybe not in the positive way that you're hoping for.
Yeah. For sure.
Awesome.
All right, you guys ready for number 3?
All right,
number 3.
Okay, number 3 spans corporate and athletics. So I think if I were to say, I've been in this industry for over 20 years. And I think that knowing what the core values of the organization that you are either going to work for or play for or coach for. And so those are, what I mean by that is like, these are the things, the values that drive daily behavior and unite a group of people and inform sort of daily decisions and business decisions. So what I would say is when you look for either a spot on a team or a coaching gig or a job, again, within an athletics department, anywhere, see if you can suss out, what are the values that really drive that organization. Yeah. So, but what I would say is that you can't ask, you can ask, but it's better to ask, to be curious and ask good questions and try to kind of pull those things out. So I give a fun example of, I have lots of examples from like my corporate world. But I had a conversation with a 5-star recruit football player, and I was just asking him about his recruiting experience. And I'm not going to name colleges here, just for the record. But he went to one place and the players told him, they said, if you want to win championships and play in the NFL, we're your spot, but don't think that you're going to have anything resembling a normal college career. Great. He went to another place, and he actually went to a practice unannounced and caught the coach just trash talking, yelling, just letting his players like have it. That was out.
Yeah.
And then he went to a place where there were like kids running around the building. Everyone was just friendly and happy, and he was like, all right, this is my place.
Right.
And here's the thing is like, if what he really wanted to do was win championships and play in the NFL, which he did want those things, just to be clear.
Yeah.
But he didn't want them at all costs.
Yeah.
And so, but that's just one of those moments where, you're trying to find the right fit. And so you're just observing, right? And having these interactions. And, I would say too, as somebody who is constantly hiring people, and frankly, like some people work out and some people don't,
right.
But I try really hard on the front end. I let people know these are our core values and this is what it looks like in daily life. Because here's the thing too, with my world, if you don't love sports and you don't sort of love, I would say if there was one trait that brings everybody at Jack Porter together, it's that they love the process of going from an idea to completion. Like every single person, no matter what your role is, like that's what you love. And you love sports too. I mean, that's,
right.
But if you don't love that, you won't fight. You won't fight for the picture. You won't fight for the approvals. You won't fight for, the idea, so, and I just, I see it all the time and I try to tell people on the front end. The other thing, like the challenge that we have, and I'm sure lots of, college athletic programs face this too, of like, it looks really shiny on the outside, right? Like the result, and the glossy picture and the, but it's a lot of work to get there. So like, you got to just somehow let people know, like, yes, you get to be a part of this. Yes, you get to come visit folks like Syracuse but it's not all just like visiting college campuses and shiny and happy. Like there's a lot of like work to get there to generate the results. So
it's not you punch your time clock, go in, and now the shiny thing comes out. Like you have to be pretty like invested in it for it to get anywhere. And it's like you can see that passion in people, and you kind of, and it's, I think similar, and Jen and I have talked about this in
100%.
hiring people for what we do. You kind of said the same thing. It's like there's the external view of what people assume it to be, because it, I mean, what we do looks really good on TV. You guys have that Instagram love. Like everyone looks at your Instagram posts and think, oh, look at that. And so, and the reality of what it takes to get there. I think we all make it look too easy. So everybody's like, okay, it's got to just be this way.
Your jobs do not look easy to me.
Well, that's because well, by the way, you're one of the few people that actually like looks behind the curtain. So
I mean, we always say to our staff, like, it's not about just standing on the sideline or sitting courtside at a basketball game. Like it's coming to the football games at 6 a.m. when we don't kick till noon and setting up the tables and tents in the rain. Like that's the stuff, that's the hard work. The people are just like, no, I just want to be in a suit on the sideline and look cool. Like that's like not even 1% of what we do. So
or if you work at Jack Porter and you got your 8th call from me from the day about something that just doesn't make any sense, and you're trying to explain it to me on the phone.
Lori, never.
You get 8 calls a day. I'm so sorry.
Well, Christina doesn't have to do it. There's other people that work for her that do, though.
There was a time when I did. There was a time.
Oh, and you still like him? Nice. That's great, Christina. That's great. That's great. Oh, good one.
Okay, so that
number 4.
That one's super broad, and then now I'm bringing it in. So this one is really addressing kind of a a growing sort of challenge / opportunity, which is that I think, what I'm seeing with everything going on in college sports is that the fan experience and the venues and basically the user experience on the fan side of things really has to be examined and elevated continually and to whatever extent the budget allows, right?
That's important. That budget piece is
but
really important.
Right. What I would say is what you want to, this kind of goes back to my number one is that, but you want to still try to protect your brand while bringing on those corporate sponsors. And, a good example, actually one of my favorite examples of a project that we've been involved in is our University of Louisville Angels Envy Bourbon Club. So they had this space completely underutilized. We developed, and their idea was, let's turn it into a bourbon bar. Wouldn't make sense in Syracuse. Makes sense in Louisville.
Definitely in Louisville makes sense.
Right.
Yes,
And so their idea was, let's design a bourbon bar and then we'll go out and pitch it to different distilleries. And that's what they did. And so then they got a partner in Angels Envy, and we were able to work with, the athletic department and Angels Envy and really develop a design that there's a couple things about the design. And I think it's that if you were to remove Angels Envy tomorrow, which I'm not recommending, but the space still has like a character and a quality that relates back to Louisville's athletic program.
Yeah.
But the Angels Envy has been like woven in. And so it doesn't feel like, I think what I just want to caution people against is this feeling like we're just slapping logos up everywhere and we're slapping them on the court and we're slapping them on this entry. Like, let's be thoughtful, purposeful. Here's the thing too, of like your fans, like they feel that. They feel when it's a genuine partnership. When so I just want to say, it's like these things are going to happen, right? They've been happening in pro stadiums and venues forever. And it's going to come more and more into the college side.
Right.
But it just makes it that much more important that you have to protect what's unique about your brand and try to find sponsors that really align with who you are. So there's my soapbox moment.
And so good.
You have to have quality space to lay that over, though. Like you said, like it doesn't work if you don't have a decent palette. It won't come off well at all.
That's true.
So I feel like you have to weave it in, and it has to look like it fits in the space. Because if it jumps out and it doesn't look, like you said, like people have this weird feeling towards stuff.
I mean, fans know when you're not genuine or when you're just trying to get a money grab for like, okay, we got this sponsor, or where you're like pushing it on them to do it. They know when you're not, when it doesn't make sense to like us trying to do a bourbon bar in Syracuse. That wouldn't make sense. It would look like we were just trying to find something to get money from, so
What's
fans
the
know
liquor that makes sense in Syracuse?
That's a good question.
I was thinking of that.
Well, there was one that we
beer.
weren't allowed.
I don't know.
No, there was one that got discontinued because they tried to use our marks and they didn't have the rights to it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
I don't want to promote them on our podcast.
No, probably just
but
beer.
That's the one I think of at first.
Yeah, there's not really like, it's probably beer. I would think it's some
Syracuse
sort of beer.
Syracuse is big on food. Like if you wanted to have chicken riggies, that's like a big Syracuse thing, or salt potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're heavy eaters over drinkers up here for some reason. You gotta
we'll examine that on the next episode.
Listen, it's cold up here. You have to build a layer of fat around yourself to be able to survive.
Yes.
Good thing our family owns a restaurant. We're all set. We're good. Oh, that's good. But
it is true. Like people will realize if something's not genuine, and especially a fan base that's been around for a long time. That's one of the things that I think is the most interesting. Like when people are in a space a lot and then they come back after you've redone it and they're like, wow, this really feels like that place, but it's new. It's like a really good feeling because they feel like it connects them to you even more, and they don't push it away. And I've seen sometimes where people are like, yeah, this doesn't feel like us. And that's just not, and that's with branding, with corporate partners, or with just the space itself. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Jen, last one.
All right. So the last one, Christina, what do you know now that you wish you knew then? So what do you know now at this point in your career that you wish you knew when you first started?
I think I'm sort of answering the question. This might be controversial. I don't know. I guess I want to say I think that college athletics has always been a business.
Yeah.
Always. And so, but the business model is changing. So even I played college sports in the 90s, and a kind of a funny memory I have is that Tiger Woods, that was when so I'm the same age as Tiger Woods. That's about all we have in common. But
okay, you were a professional golfer, so that's pretty big deal.
He's a little more accomplished. But
that's a pretty big deal, though.
He got in trouble. You guys, I mean, Jen, you're pretty young, so you might not have been around for this. But
I was.
Trouble.
I'm older than you think.
You know what I'm going to say is that he got in trouble for Arnold Palmer buying him dinner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Imagine where we are right now.
Right.
And that a college athlete, and that's partly why he left Stanford.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think about that. And I think about, it was always a business, but it was kind of a zero-sum game, right? It's like the old model, I don't know, is it old yet? I think it's old. But
dying.
Was that, is it dying like while we're on this podcast?
Yeah.
I mean, you have, at schools, you basically had, so I went to University of Arizona. My guess is that basketball and football were the only revenue generating sports back then. Even though there were some good other teams, but they were the only two, again, guessing. And they footed the bill for every other sport.
Yeah.
And the other thing I have come to know is that a lot of athletes really didn't know that.
Right.
In fact, there's probably tons of athletes who played and gone on and had no idea that that's what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, here we are. I don't know that I think that was right. I'm not sure where we currently are is quite right.
Yeah.
But my hope is that, eventually it kind of, we settle back into a better place, right? Like maybe we'd swung all the way over here. Now we're all the way over here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it always was a business.
Yeah.
And just now the business model is changing.
Yeah.
But I do think dollars are flowing into college sports like crazy. It's all over the place. It's unsettled. I've heard people, the wild, wild west. But for me, I think too, especially on the women's sports side, I wouldn't be who I am without college sports, right? So it gave me a place to learn and grow and develop and be an idiot and fail and succeed and all the things. And so, I think that's the thing I most worry about getting lost is that, and the coachability. I think we're seeing, we're seeing this whole generation of coaches that are like, man, I just can't operate within this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then you see some who are like, no, I'm going to find a way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people give Dabo a hard time, but man, his culture is strong. I mean, Coach Freeman at Notre Dame. I mean, so you see these coaches who are finding a way to create a culture, to, create camaraderie, create team, despite all these,
all the noise,
influences,
all the noise.
Yeah. So that's my thing is that I think it was always a business. It's still a business. We're just changing the rules. So.
You have to be adaptable to it. If not, you're probably not going to survive it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice and morbid. Jeez.
Yeah, that's the way they end it.
But it's truth, it's the truth. So
yeah, I mean, again, my hope is we come out the other side in a better place. I think it's just gonna take a minute.
Yeah, the pendulum always swings one to the other, and it's got to find its middle ground. But you're right.
I don't envy the people that are having to figure this out.
Me either. Nope. Me either.
We got to find out who those people are first. I don't think
they even know. They don't even know.
I think everyone's looking for those people.
Everyone's just like, nose goes, not me.
Not it.
Not it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is awesome. Such a good conversation.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy that we got to catch up, and great tips and tricks. And
yes, I learned so much. This was great. This was so interesting. So thank you.
For anyone that haven't seen Jack Porter's work, check out your socials. And you guys have done awesome stuff. They have really cool stuff if you haven't seen it before. So please check that out for them.
Very
and thanks
cool.
everyone for joining us for the podcast.
Yes, and make sure to follow us on all of our socials as well at Ath Career Pod, and like us on all your social and podcast platforms. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
If you like the 5 Tips and Tricks podcast, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can rate and review us, including questions that may be answered on future episodes. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast for careers in athletics is part of Athletic Career Consulting. Check us out at www.athcareer.com. Don't forget to follow and like us on your top social media platforms.